Hi, and welcome to this week's video blog on Some Assembly Required. I'm Sarah Hammerker, and I'm glad you joined me. Today I want to talk about schedules. With kids back to school or heading back to school soon, the family schedules can get kind of crazy this time of year with all the school activities and sports activities and other activities that are gearing up after summer. It can be difficult to figure out who's supposed to be where, when, and to have family time together. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how to figure out how to do your schedule. A couple of things I think we need to keep in mind. One, kids need downtime. Kids are way too overscheduled. I'm sorry, there is nothing more important than giving your child free time. And I know that goes against a lot of what you hear these days. Um, that kids need to learn, they have to have a sport to specialize in. They have to figure out what they want to do. But what really feeds their brain, what really recharges their battery are two things: sleep and downtime, free time, time that is not managed by an adult. Why are sleep and downtime so important? Well, I shouldn't really have to tell you this, but kids in elementary school need like 9 to 10 hours of sleep. Even teenagers need at least 8 to 9 hours of sleep, and tweens probably need a little bit more because they're doing all that growing and puberty and stuff. So make sure your kid is asleep. If your kid has to stay up late to do homework because of sports events, I would definitely recommend rethinking the sports events. If your kids are tired all the time, you need to look at your schedule and make sure that they have time to decompress and to sleep. Now, why is free time so important? But sometimes we parents look at our kids doing nothing and we think they need to be doing something because doing nothing is not contributing to their academic success. Hogwash. Doing nothing is helping them in ways that we are only beginning to really understand. A lot of science and neurology talking about how the brain recharges itself, how the brain needs to rest, not just in sleep, but not to be stimulated all the time, are really coming to value giving kids downtime, free time to do whatever they want and not have to think about things, to be bored even, can really get those creative juices running. So make sure that your child has enough time to wind down to get a good night's sleep and has enough free time during the week to kind of just be a kid. It may look like play to us, but it really is helping them to be helping their brain and their development to be on the right path. So first of all, think of those two things. Thirdly, you need to think about how this fits into the whole family. Too often we get focused on one kid who loves soccer, and suddenly everyone in the family is catering to that child and their soccer skills. That's necessarily wrong, but you have to look at the big picture. What are your family values? What do you want to value as a family? For us, it's eating dinner almost every night of the week together as a family. It's making sure that we have lazy Saturdays and Sundays together. We are firm believers that Sunday is the Lord's Day, and so we have church and family. Kids are not going to birthday parties. They're not inviting friends over. They may play with some friends outside, but they're not inviting friends over on a regular basis. They're not going out to sporting events. We don't do any scheduled events on Sunday. It's very, very rare that we do that because that's for church and it's for family, and that's important for us to have this relaxing time. We're all a lot off electronic devices most of the time. We're all we're doing some reading, we're doing some family game time, we're having dinner together, we're relaxing together as a family, and that's really important. So you have to think about what's important for your family. And if family dinners are important, then maybe you skip the sporting events that cause you to miss family dinners 5 nights out of the week. These are sacrifices that we make. These are choices that we make for the good of the family unit as a whole, because a family is not made up of 5 individuals. If you have a mother, father, and 3 kids, those are not 5 individuals. That's a family. And unless you act like the whole family is important and everyone's joining together on these things, it's not going to work. So think of that. Think also of the purpose of the activity. What is really going on here? If your kid really loves to play soccer, great. They can play soccer as long as you keep the other 3 things in mind. But make sure that they're not just playing soccer. They're sure they're playing soccer because they love it, not because you want them to get a soccer scholarship. You see the difference? We want kids to enjoy the things that are interesting to them, that do spark their passion, but we also want to be careful that we're not shoving our kids into things because we see this long-term goal for it. You know, kids ought to be able to decide what they want to do within certain parameters. Like in our family, we think playing the piano is very important. So there's no choice in piano playing until the kids hit high school, and then they can decide, do they want to continue playing the piano or do they want to stop? Now, my oldest daughter, when she hit 9th grade, she decided to stop playing the piano. When my youngest daughter, she's going into high school this year, she wanted to continue playing the piano. So we're going to continue lessons for her. Those kind of choices are good, and so you have to find out how to fit that into your schedule. But let's talk about, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about my kids and their piano playing. Not because I think every kid should play piano, but because this is a good example of what I mean about looking at the schedule. We had our piano teacher retire, or she stopped taking lessons, and we had a hard time finding a piano teacher that would fit with our schedule. We interviewed several nice ones, but either the time they had to teach was going to be a time that was going to totally disrupt our family and put a lot of stress on us. And so we ended up actually not doing piano for a whole year. It was kind of hard, but every time I looked for another piano teacher, the time that she would have to do lessons was a time that was going to be either wasn't going to work for our family because it was like too early in the day and our kids weren't out of school, or it was going to really stress our family trying to do this. So we took a year off. Now my kids are back. We found a great teacher, and the lessons are working, the timing are working with our family schedule, so we can still do the things we want to do together and have our priorities of eating dinner together and not being stressed. The other thing I want you to consider, this is to you moms, is a quote from a book that was published several years ago called Bringing Up Baby, about an American mom living in France. And one of my favorite quotes in the book was when this American mom, she asked this French woman, she goes, well, how are your daughters enjoying their tennis lessons? And the French woman gave one of those Gallic shrugs and said, oh, well, we stopped doing that. And the American mom says, well, why? Didn't the girls like it? And the French woman said, oh, yes, they still love doing it, but it wasn't working for me. And what I loved about that was that this French woman said, yeah, my kids enjoyed the tennis lessons. They liked taking them. They would love to continue taking them, but it wasn't working for me. And so many times we mothers just don't have the backbone, the guts, or whatever, the guilt. We have too much guilt to say, you know, I know you really love those swim lessons, but getting up at 4 a.m. to take you isn't working for me because I'm just cranky all day. Or, you know, I know you love this, but I just can't take you to ballet 3 times a week. It's really hard on me. And therefore, I am not able to be the mom to the rest of the kids in the family. I mean, we need to give ourselves the freedom to sometimes say no to a child's activities, a child's who wants to schedule something because it's not good for us. And then it's not good for our family. So as you look at your kids' schedule this coming year and you think about all the activities that they want to do and all the excitement of the school year, I want you to keep these things in mind. I want you to keep their sleep in mind, their need for downtime. What's the purpose of the activity, the family schedule, and I also want you to consider how it impacts you as the mom. And if it's not good for you, it's not good for the family, and it's, all these factors, then it's okay to say no, because it doesn't have to say no forever. Just like with our piano, we took a year off and now we're back. It can be no for a season. And sometimes that's the best thing you can give your kids. Less of a scheduled schedule. Well, thank you for joining me for this week's video blog. I hope I'll see you next week. Thanks.